Thank you for tuning in to Retiring Well. We've got a great show lined up. We're going to be talking about a guide to your IRA, differences between traditional and Roth IRAs, 10 important ages for retirement planning, costs to include in your retirement budget, along with 529 plans. So all this and much more coming up. Stay tuned to Retiring Well.
Retiring Well, brought to you by Centennial Wealth Advisory, financial advisors specializing in retirement planning and serving all of northern Michigan. Retiring Well, helping you plan for a successful and comfortable retirement. Retiring Well, plan to retire well.
I'd like to walk through with you a basic guide to your IRA. So traditional IRAs became available back in 1974, so we're coming up close to 50 years for that. And then meanwhile, Roth IRAs weren't started until 1997, so we haven't had those around quite as long. But the benefits of an IRA include a tax deduction for contributions that you make into a traditional IRA. And there's no tax while you're earning that interest. But on the traditional IRA, obviously you're going to have taxes owed when you go to withdraw those funds. Meanwhile, a Roth IRA provides you tax-free growth along with future tax-free distributions, but you don't get the upfront tax deduction like you would on a traditional IRA. There's going to be limits on your contribution. So it's in 2022, that's $6,000. But meanwhile, when you're age 50 and over, there's makeup contributions, they say, of $1,000. So you could contribute up to $7,000 in 2022. And this applies to both traditional and Roth IRAs, and you can file or contribute up to the tax filing deadline for the previous year for contributions. Different eligibility requirements. You must have earned income. However, you can set up a spousal IRA. If you're working, your spouse isn't working, you can make contributions on their behalf. And you might be eligible to contribute to both a 401k and an IRA, traditional or Roth, but you need to be below certain income amounts, and that changes year by year. Along with making contributions, those income limitations may come into play as far as for traditional IRA and Roth IRA, so you want to double check that information. As far as traditional versus Roth, traditional, the way I look at it is you're essentially saving the tax on the seed but then paying tax on the harvest, versus Roth IRA, you're paying tax on the seed and then there's no taxes on the harvest. So the old adage is for a traditional IRA is that you're potentially in a higher tax bracket today and then where you're going to be in the future. So why not take that tax deduction now in a traditional IRA, because you're going to be in a much lower tax situation upon retirement. That may or may not be the case for you. That's something that a lot of times people look at and see, well, if I'm earning this income and spending this level of income today, perhaps in retirement I want to be at a similar level. And so you may end up in the same tax bracket potentially. So again, a lot of different factors that go into this, and if you haven't really evaluated a traditional IRA versus Roth IRA and what makes sense for you, we encourage you to give us a call here at Centennial Wealth Advisory.
What a bunch of great information there on what an actual IRA is. You know, oftentimes in the Gaylord office, I'll get couples that come into the office and they'll be like, okay, I've got an IRA, but I can't hold this investment tool in that, or I can't have an annuity because I have an IRA. The big thing that I always like to have those clients understand is that the IRA is just a tax wrapper for the various investment tools that you have at your disposal. So if you want to own Tesla within your IRA, or you want a different annuity product, you can hold that It's just the wrapper that the IRS places on those investments so that you know, okay, when I go to take money out of it, that's going to be a taxable event. But there's also other tax wrappered accounts like the Roth account.
Right, the Roth IRA is, a common account that a lot of people maybe haven't been very familiar. In the Cadillac office, I will have clients come from downstate quite a bit. They bought the up north cabin, and here they are in the cabin. They want to meet and figure out what that retirement plan might look like. And so when we meet, a lot of times I find that they keep referring to their 401k as their only option. And we sit down and we say, well, actually, let's first make sure it still isn't a 401k. I've seen where it's actually got rolled to an IRA, and they're calling their IRA their 401k. But there's different rules and different investment options, as Nick was saying, that can be held in the IRA that are not a lot of times options in the 401k. So, as soon as we identify what account do you actually have, now let's talk about what you're trying to accomplish. Then we can identify what, position or product you might want to fit into that. And then we get to throw that tax planning and introduce what that Roth IRA looks like. How do we, institute a IRA or 401k exit strategy? Let's kick Uncle Sam out of that account and maybe move over to the Roth IRA.
Yeah, lots of great information there, Jack. So if you have any questions on what actual type of account you own or the different tax strategies with your IRA or Roth account, please don't hesitate to give us a call at the number on the screen. We'd be happy to help. Stay tuned. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about some specific retirement ages and then also costs to include in your retirement budget.
If you like watching Retiring Well, make sure to go to youtube.com/retiringwell and click the subscribe button to never miss any of our TV shows and other informative videos. Every success story starts with a plan. The success of your retirement depends on a solid financial plan. If you are nearing retirement or already retired, we invite you to an informative live event to help you plan to retire well. There is no cost and no obligation, and dinner is on us. We are Centennial Wealth Advisory, financial professionals, specializing in retirement planning, serving all of northern Michigan, with offices in Traverse City, Cadillac, Petoskey, and Gaylord. Our presentation includes, is your retirement prepared for inflation? Do you know the true risk of your investments? What happens to your assets when you pass away? Do you have a tax plan? How does your income affect health insurance costs? And much more. Call 888-608-5825 to register and choose the date and location that works best for you. Wednesday, October 19th at Lakeside Charlie's in Cadillac, or Thursday, October 20th at BJ's in Gaylord. The live event starts at 6 p.m. and is free to attend with a complimentary gourmet dinner to follow, but seating is limited and tends to fill quickly. Call 888-608-5825 to reserve your seats today. Don't miss this important live event to help you plan to retire well. Call 888-608-5825 today.
It's your retirement. How will you live it? How will you be remembered?
Will you be able to take me on vacation? Will you be there for my ball games? Will you teach me your values? You'll be able to play with me. Oh, help me go to college. How will I remember you?
Have the retirement you dream about. Contact us today.
Let's talk about the 10 important ages kind of for retirement planning here. I'm going to do a little rapid fire here to get through all 10 of these here. The first age, 49. Highly consider maxing out your retirement savings contributions prior to age 49. That way, you can take full advantage or the best possible advantage of that compounding interest over time. Typically, those folks that start earlier and save those bigger amounts have the better chance of growing that savings. Age 50. This is what starts that catch-up provision to retirement plans and IRAs. You're allowed to increase your contributions at that point by specific amounts, depending upon the year, of what you can put into those plans. Age 55. If you're in a 401k, 403b retirement plan and you retire or quit that job, you may be eligible to take distributions from that without the 10% penalty. 59 and a half. That is the age you can take distributions from an IRA without the 10% penalty. Different from the 55 rule, so very important, you know the account you have, and if you are considering retiring prior to 59 and a half, to make certain you're not making any moves that would jeopardize that. 62. That's when you can start taking Social Security benefits considered early, but you allow to take that traditional benefit at that time. 65, eligible for Medicare. If you're retiring prior to that, you're hopefully either on some sort of workplace insurance or potentially the marketplace. 66, full retirement age for most baby boomers. For those born between the ages of 43 and 1954 fall into that group. 67, full retirement age for the younger generation. 70. You can defer those Social Security payments up to that point, allowing that benefit to continue to grow at that point. 72. Required minimum distributions. This changed from 70 and a half a few years ago. So this is the age that you are required by the IRS to start taking those distributions whether you want to or not. Dependent upon your age at 72 and beyond, there's a divisor that tells you what specific dollar amount at a minimum you are required to take out at that time. You can take more, but you have to make sure you're at least meeting that minimum so you don't pay a penalty. Hopefully you found these 10 ages helpful and interesting. There's more out there at different various times, and that's why it's vital to have a very specific and detailed plan specifically for you. If you'd like to talk to us about your retirement plan or lack thereof one, give us a call at the number on the screen. We'd love to sit down with you and have a no cost, no obligation visit here at Centennial Wealth Advisory.
If you're retired or approaching retirement in the next 5 to 10 years, join us for an informative live event. This event is all about you, the challenges you face, and the information you need to help you build the future that you want. There's no pressure to become a client. Our goal is to simply give you valuable information that you can use to make smarter financial decisions. We hope that by the time you leave this event, you'll be one step closer to your retirement goals.
Nick Greenman here with Centennial Wealth Advisory, standing out here in a beautiful northern Michigan day with my grandfather, Ronald Ohm. Today he's kind of being like my caddy, but in all seriousness, he was a great impact in my life, both growing up on the golf course and just in life in general. And that's why it's so important to make sure that you're partnering with the right caddy, both on the golf course and in your financial planning. Growing up around the game of golf, you know, we didn't really have the opportunity to have a caddy by our side all the time, but it's so important to have that. Okay, I mean, a caddy, yes, their task might be mundane from time to time, whether it's raking bunkers or fixing ball marks on a green, but really they're so valuable because they know the course inside and out, and they also know you, your club selection, and your emotions in every shot. And you know, that can be translated right into the financial world as well. You need to have somebody on your side when you're planning for retirement. You need somebody that knows the ins and outs of retirement, how to plan for those different obstacles that you're going to go through, whether it's health insurance planning, income planning, tax planning, estate planning, and investment planning. You can't do it all by yourself. You need a financial partner, a financial advisor, just like a caddy by your side.
let's talk about some different costs that you're going to want to include in your retirement budget. So when preparing for retirement, what is the amount of money that you spend now versus what you think is going to be your expenses in retirement? It might surprise you, but they might be very, very similar. So I'd start with a budget worksheet. Why don't you look at the past several months of your credit card statement if you run a lot of your charges through the credit card, and sort of see what are those different areas where you're spending money, and that's something that you can evaluate whether you anticipate continuing to spend that amount in your retirement years. Let's start with your housing budget. This is likely the largest part of your budget. If you have a mortgage, that might be something as you're preparing for retirement. Is that a key focus to try and pay that mortgage off prior to retirement? That's typically a family's largest expense, is that cost. And so if you can get that paid off and get that eliminated, puts you in a much better position in retirement. What about your property taxes, your home insurance, different maintenance costs for the house? The list goes on, as you can imagine, as a homeowner. What about health insurance? That's an area where you've got your Medicare Parts A and B, which currently in 2022 stand at $170.10 per person, so you can budget that in, but if you're higher income, you might pay more. But along with that, there's different probably Medigap plans that you're going to be paying for. So figure that out, and that's a key piece. What about taxes? Traditional IRA, 401k withdrawals, those are going to be taxable to you. At age 72, you have required minimum distributions from those different retirement accounts. And a lot of times people come and get to retirement, they say, well, I want to buy this boat or this car or whatever it might be. I'll just use my 401k or IRA. Well, that might surprise you what the tax implications are for taking such a large withdrawal. So you need to consider that. What about your food costs? You might have more time to cook at home, or you might have more time now to think, well, I'll go out for lunch or dinner, whatever that might be. So you want to budget that in to the overall plan. Having an emergency fund is going to be important for those different home repairs, the new roof that needs to be done in a few years, appliances breakdown, or vehicle maintenance, whatever that might be. Entertainment, here in northern Michigan, there's plenty to do outside that doesn't cost anything, but again, there's a lot of fun things that also cost money to enjoy. Travel, that's one of the areas that I enjoy hearing from our clients, is all the unique adventures that they take in retirement. And what about grandchildren? Maybe you want to spoil them a little bit. So again, there's a lot of different costs that come up in retirement. I encourage you to go through and map that budget out for you and your family.
Hey, welcome back. There are some very important ages that you are going to reach that involve decisions when it comes to your retirement planning. And so today we're going to dive just a little bit deeper into the why that is important to you. One that I find constantly is the Medicare age of 65. And so clients will come in, maybe they're 55, maybe they're 60 years old, maybe they're 62, and they want to retire. They're just done. Okay, great. All right. Let's plan that out. But are you familiar with what your healthcare plan is going to look like? And a lot of times they had been spending so much time on their investment and retirement planning that they kind of neglected their healthcare plan. Okay, so where are you going to get your healthcare, and how much is that going to cost? Well, we get to sit down and teach you and show you, hey, here's where you can go. Do we need to go to the marketplace? Do you have any health insurance benefits from a pension or from work, or is a spouse going to work? And so once we get all that data, now we can map out what that healthcare plan looks like. That is going to then talk a lot about the tax planning that really coincides to that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just so important to know all these different ages that are out there and the rules that are associated with them. Interesting client that I had just recently was a couple that came in, and they had their plan in place. They knew they were 58 years old. At age 59 and a half, they would have access to their funds. They'd be able to retire, and they wouldn't have to pay that early distribution penalty of 10% because they were going to be 59 and a half when they retired. Well, come to find out, all their funds were actually still in their 401k plans because they were still working, and they had never heard of the rule of 55, which states that if you retire after the age of 55, you will have access to your entire 401k balance without paying a penalty. So this kind of blew their mind in this meeting that they could actually retire early if they wanted to and not be subject to that 10% penalty. But I mean, everybody's situation is unique, and it's just, as Jack was saying, it's so important to understand the various ages that apply, and then also the different corresponding strategies that we're going to implement based on the different ages that we have to abide by. So hope you found that valuable. Stay tuned. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about 529 plans. You don't want to miss it.
Are you retired or approaching retirement in the next 5 to 10 years? Join the Centennial Wealth Advisory team for an exciting presentation with complimentary gourmet dinner and learn essential financial strategies for a comfortable retirement. Call 888-608-5825 to reserve your seats today. There is no cost and no obligation. Call 888-608-5825.
At Centennial Wealth Advisory, we take a holistic approach to your retirement planning. So it's not just looking at what your investments are, but what is that long-term income plan for the next 30, 40 years of your retirement? What about taxes and what role they play in your retirement plan? Estate planning, what about life insurance, health insurance planning, all key areas to consider when looking at your retirement. So please visit our website or call the number on the screen. We'd love the opportunity to sit down with you for a no-cost, no-obligation visit.
Living life isn't always easy. It puts up challenges and obstacles you'll have to overcome. There are responsibilities. You put in effort to provide and take care of your family, and to save and invest, to balance work and life. Planning is the first step to succeeding. Plan to retire well. If you like watching Retiring Well, make sure to go to youtube.com/retiringwell and click the subscribe button to never miss any of our TV shows and other informative videos.
Veering from the typical retirement planning talk, let's kind of have a little education about 529 plans. And maybe it is in your retirement plan, but typically it's probably for grandkids, children, nieces, nephews, that sort of stuff, when for the most part, when you're thinking retirement and 529 in those conversations together. But really, what is a 529 plan? Well, it's really an investment account that offers some benefits, typically tax benefits, when they're used to pay for qualifying educational expenses. So in the state of Michigan, because it's not federally tax deductible to make contributions to a 529 plan, states can decide if they want to make tax deductible. So in the state of Michigan, we're allowed to deduct up to $5,000 as an individual or $10,000 as a married filing joint, if up to those contributions limit. There's actually no annual contribution limit on a 529 plan, just a limit of what you can deduct in the state of Michigan. However, there is a lifetime limit of what you can put in, and they call it per beneficiary. It's like the child that's going to education, that's the beneficiary. So it's $500,000 account value. Once you reach that, then you have to stop contributing for that beneficiary. If you have multiple beneficiary, multiple children, let's say, that you're planning for college expenses for, it's per account and per that beneficiary. One of the things people or parents, grandparents like about 529 plans is the control that you maintain. So even though you name a beneficiary, let's say a grandchild, that grandchild is not legally titled to that account. You are the owner at that time. You actually can take the money back out and spend it for what you want. Now, you're going to pay some tax penalties and stuff like that if you do that, because it's likely not for qualified education expenses for that beneficiary. But you maintain control. So once they get to that point, though, and they're ready to start doing that, then you want to make sure it's for those qualifying educational expenses, so then there's no tax issues for you or that beneficiary at that time. Investments grow tax deferred, and then once again tax free upon the qualifying distribution. So very unique tools out there. And the one takeaway though I want to say is it's not the only education savings plan that's out there. It's a option. Like many things, we want to look at what specifically you're trying to accomplish and what is your circumstance and situation, because there's other options out there. The 529 plan may be the best one and it may not be. So it's important to know what's out there and how they all work in conjunction with each other. So if you have more questions about a 529 plan, or you're considering maybe helping a grandchild save for their college, give us a call. We'd love to walk through and see how we may be able to help you plan for their education.
What another great segment there on 529 plans. They're great tools to help you save for your college education for kids, grandkids, or relatives, the like. I had a recent case in the Gaylord office where a couple, they were seniors had been saving for their grandchildren's retirement, and they weren't too familiar with all the different intricacies of a 529 plan and the rules associated with them. Come to find out, they were saving for 2 different grandchildren, and the oldest grandchild, he actually got a full ride scholarship for college, and he didn't need this 529 plan that his grandparents had been saving all their life for. But the grandparents, they didn't want to just give those funds to their other grandchild. They wanted this grandchild to benefit in some way as well, and they weren't sure what to do with this 529 plan. Well, what they determined was, hey, we could use this money for my grandchild's children, so great-grandchild. And actually the 529 plan, it doesn't have to be used for college. You can use it for K through 12 school as well, as long as it's just for the tuition piece. And so that really set their mind at ease, knowing that they could still leave this legacy to their great-grandchildren in that respect.
Absolutely. I appreciate that story there, Nick. And there's a couple other things that you might want to look into. With 529 plans, you can get direct sold 529 plans. I think that takes the advantage, or you can get advisor sold 529 plans. And so research, what's going to be the best fit for you, but if it can be a direct sell 529 plan, I think you could save in some fees. The other part is who should own the 529 plan. As it currently sits, if the student is the owner of the 529 plan, up to 20% of that asset can be counted to the student as they prepare in FAFSA. If the parent is owning the 529 plan, then I think up to 5.64% of that asset could be counted. But if it is grandparent owned, where the beneficiary is, or the recipient is going to be that grandchild, then 0% is going to be counted as an asset as they fill out FAFSA. So, a lot to go there, a lot of information. If you have any questions about, setting this type plan up, please feel free to give us a call. We'd love to teach you what might be helpful for you to know. So again, thanks so much for tuning in each and every week. We love that we get to teach, and so we hope you find it valuable. We'll see you next week, same time, same channel.